How do you perfect a gummy bear recipe?
Well, today on WTF, we're going to show you all the tricks of the trade when you're making your gummy bear, whether you're using gelatin, vegan gelatin, or even pectin. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners of Modernist Pantry. Here on WTF, every week we cover unique ingredients and techniques, so ring the bell and subscribe, and you can get our new content and also find out how you can get these recipes in your own kitchen. And this week, we're going to be talking all about how to make the perfect gummy from a bunch of different gelling agents, sweeteners, and acids, because it's a question that we get over and over again. How do I make a different gummy? What do I do if I want to add this in? What if I need to substitute something else out? So we thought we would try to capture it all in one episode. So we are going to be giving away, what's our giveaway? Oh yes, we are giving away a sampler pack of one gelling agent, one sweetener, and one acid of your choice from our catalog. So it's a great prize if you get inspired to continue your experimentations. All right. Now, Scott, because we're covering a pretty big topic today, I kind of do want to break it down into the core components of making a gummy bear, which is choosing the right type of gelling agent, choosing the right type of sweetener, and choosing the right type of acid.
Yes.
And why don't we start off with the gelling agents. What are the typical types of gelling agents people use and when they choose to make a gummy bear?
So the main one's going to be gelatin. That's going to be the most baseline. Gummy bears are made with gelatin, but if you want to switch it up and you want to do other types of things, you can go into pectin, which is more like a gumdrop type texture, and then you can also go into vegan options or plant-based options, where we have our vegan gelatin that shines pretty well.
Yeah, and if you want to do a deep dive into any of these ingredients, we have already done episodes on all these topics, so you're going to find them in the links in the description below. But first, a little bit about each of the gelling agents. Right here we have our sheet gelatin, the Perfect-to-Gel brand, and we have 5 different ones. We're showcasing 3. Well, when people are looking at sheet gelatin, what do the different blooms mean? Because that's typically how they're being separated.
So this is quite the topic, right? So, so bloom, you'll see bloom on the outside of it, and in our minds that probably means like, okay, well, I'm going to need more of this one than I am of the next one, and that can be a little confusing. The best thing that's actually about gelatin is that every single sheet from every single bloom will gel the same. The differences are the clarity. So platinum, which is the highest grade, will be clearer, have less of a flavor than titanium, which is the lowest grade. The biggest thing that allows it to be, each sheet is standardized amongst all of them, is that the weight. The platinum sheets are going to weigh much less than a titanium, and throughout the spectrum. So we have titanium, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and each one of those weighs less as it goes up the scale, but they have the same gelling strength. So if you have a recipe that says, give me silver gelatin in this many sheets, and all you have is platinum, you could take that amount of sheets and just add the platinum, and it's just going to make it clearer and have less of a flavor.
Okay. And for gummy bears, we typically do recommend platinum and gold and not going really underneath that, just because we like to have the gummies be as clear and less porcine flavored as possible. Okay, so moving on to pectin, and obviously we also have 5 different types of pectin. Which type of pectin is most commonly used in gummies?
So most commonly you're going to be using either a rapid set or a slow set HM pectin.
Okay.
And HM pectin reacts with sugar solids. It could be isomalt, it could be table sugar, whatever it is, and also acid. So when you're making this recipe, you want to save the acid for the end.
Okay.
But if you don't add the acid, it will not work, because the acid is required to make the pectin gel. So it requires 2 things, the sugar solids and the acid. So you heat it to the correct temperature, which is about 240 degrees, between 240 and 250, depending on where you like the texture. We like around 240. And then you add in the acid, which is just like citric acid. You can use malic acid as well, depending on what flavor you're doing. Malic acid would be more for something like a green apple, and citric acid would be more for other fruits like citrus fruits and things like that.
Oh, wait.
So you can really kind of standardize it and make it what you want. But when you add that acid and you mix it up and you place it into a container, it will gel really quickly after that.
Okay.
Originally, I started doing this and I started adding the acid too early, and I was having issues that it was clumping and setting too early. So we found that adding the acid later is going to help, and that actually went into the next one, which is our Sour Patch Bears.
Okay, great. And we're definitely going to be taste testing all of these.
Yes.
But to finish up on the gelling agents, I know we have our Druids Grove vegan gelatin. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the vegan gelatin's great, and it works in a really great way that it's one-to-one replacement for the weight of sheet gelatin or powdered gelatin. So if your recipe calls for 10 grams of gelatin, you can replace it with 10 grams of the vegan gelatin, and you're going to have the same gelling effect. The difference is you don't have to bloom it. Some people think, oh, I'm still using the same recipe. It's a one-to-one replacement, but it's not a one-to-one replacement for the method. Okay. So you're still going to, or you're not going to bloom it. You're going to dry mix it into the sugar and mix it into the water that way. Because it is not a gelatin, it does not need to bloom. And then you can actually just melt it right into your recipe. And it's actually quicker than you would with a traditional gelatin. And this one, you can use pretty much any sugar. The only thing you have to worry about is the amount of acid with the vegan gelatin. So if you're adding if you're making something like an orange and you want it to be acidic, you can't add too much acid because it will not allow this to gel. Okay. So you have to add the acid later, either in a coating on the outside or just a mixture that's added in right at the end of the recipe before you set them into molds.
Yeah. And I know that sometimes people have said that they have problems getting the vegan gelatin to set correctly because, so vegan gelatin is derived from seaweed. What is happening there? What is the special heating requirement, if any, that the vegan gelatin has?
So yeah, the vegan gelatin, it sets at a much higher temperature, whereas gelatin usually sets at around below 60 degrees Fahrenheit for hours. The vegan gelatin sets at about 160 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds. So you have to make sure that it's heated up to about 180 or all the way to 200. So anywhere in between that range, you want to make sure it's sitting in that range before you take it off or before you try and set it. What happens with people is that they heat it up on the stove at very low heat. The bottom will liquefy, and then when they stir it up, it cools it down and it can kind of clump up. If you get to that point, just continue to heat it. Once it all equalizes and it's all at one consistent temperature, then it'll be able to be poured, it'll be fluid. If you're doing this in a large commercial setting, which a lot of people who use this are, they use something like a heated depositor or something like that. At home, we don't generally have that, so I just keep the pan on the stove, and if it solidifies, I put it back on the stove on low heat and mix it up until it melts again. And you don't have to worry about reheating it a few times. It's going to work perfectly fine.
That's a great tip. Yeah. So what it sounds like is when you're making a gummy, the most important thing is first to decide what your gelling agent is going to be, because it's going to then inform the rest of your decisions about sweeteners and about acids or no acid or however you proceed. So you can get all of today's recipes on our blog. Links will be in the description below or on blog.modernistpantry.com. So don't worry, it's a lot of information. I know it will all be available online. All right. Next, let's talk about sweeteners. So obviously, we have our traditional white sugar, but then we also here have a lot of different sugar alternatives. I think right now we're showcasing two, but we have like 6 or 7, I want to say, different options. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the role that sugar plays, and then what happens if people want to start looking into sugar alternatives for, like hypoglycemic index or anything like that?
Sure. So yeah, any sugar alternative can go with something like the gelatin. Gelatin doesn't require sugar to set. It can go with the vegan gelatin as well. It doesn't require sugar to set. Something like the pectin is going to require some sugar solids. So you can use regular sugar, you can use isomalt, but if you're going to use something other than that, like allulose or whatnot, it may not work. I'm not saying 100% it won't work, but it may not work. So if you want to do that, you can switch out the type of pectin, and you could probably get it to work that way. But I would suggest sticking, if you're using pectin, use or HM pectin, use sugar, use isomalt, and that's going to give you the best effect.
Okay, and so when we talk about sugar, usually we think of like just regular white table sugar. What about other types of special sugars like cane sugar, sugar in the raw, all these other fancy sweeteners?
Yeah, so basically you're melting them anyway, so they're going to be able to be mixed into the recipe. They're going to work fine. Some of those have slightly different flavors, so if you're fine with those, absolutely fine. You can use something like a sugar in the raw. If you're going to be using something like corn syrup or a liquid sugar, do know that that contains water, so it may mess with the recipe a little bit, but it's such a small amount of water, it shouldn't be a big deal. But just to understand that those do have liquid sugars in them, or water in the sugar to make them liquid.
Yeah, and in our recipes, we typically like to have sorbitol, or we like to have isomalt. So if you are purchasing one of our other sugar alternatives, so like there's allulose, glucose, xylitol. There's definitely ones that I'm forgetting. You will have to do some experimentation just to make sure that they work, or you can write in and kind of ask us if you're having issues. We're happy to help if we can. Yeah. All right, and then last but not least, I think when we talk about acids, can you first talk about what is the role of adding an acid? I know you talked about it a little bit with the pectin, but like in general, what is the role that acid plays in making a gummy bear?
So acid generally is for flavoring. These are made mostly of some sort of gelling agent, sugar, and water, and that's going to lead to a very sweet, very one-note kind of treat. So adding the acid is going to add flavor. If you're doing something like the pectin, like gums, or you're going to be doing something like the Sour Patch Bears that we have here, you're going to have to add acid to make them work. The Sour Patch Bears contain gelatin, they contain sugar, and they contain pectin. So you bring the sugar to a specific temperature, you add the gel or the gelatin, and then you add the acid last to make that pectin set. So you end up with a very kind of complex, it's a little bit stringy, it's a little bit soft, a very different texture compared to a regular gummy bear. So generally the acid is either, well, for the outside on these, there to make the pectin gel or for flavor.
Okay, and then for the vegan gelatin, don't add any acid at all.
You can add acid.
Okay.
You then have to add something like sodium citrate, and then you can put some more acid on the outside. But sodium citrate is an ingredient that's going to buffer it to the point where the vegan gelatin can gel. And if you follow our recipe, all the ingredients and the measurements are proper on there, so you don't have to do any math or anything like that. You can just follow the recipe and it's going to work.
Yeah. And I think one of the questions, and I can kind of anticipate this coming, is someone's going to leave in the comments, what about agar? I use agar. So agar is also seaweed derived.
Yeah.
Why don't we usually go with agar?
So I find that the vegan gelatin that we have has a better texture than agar. It's a little creamier, it's a little smoother, it has a better bounce than agar does. I find agar, which is a brittle gel, will kind of fall apart in shards, whereas this one is a little bit more bouncy, like a traditional gelatin. So you can use agar, you can use it the exact same way that we are using the vegan gelatin. Just know that those are not a one-to-one replacement for each other. So you're gonna have to find your own recipe for an agar gum, because we don't have one. But we suggest the vegan gelatin for a gum or a gummy bear or whatever it is you're making, because of the texture. It's so similar to a traditional gelatin.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, which is kind of the importance of texture, because I think we all have a perception of what we think a gummy bear should taste like. When we talk about texture, and I know you made a few samples here, what is the resulting texture that you will get from each of these combinations?
Sure, so the gummy bear, or the gummy style bear, or whatever it is, and the vegan gum are going to be similar. They're going to be a bouncy gummy. We really like the pectin gums because they're softer, but they have a good chew to them. You have to heat the sugar to a specific temperature, and then you get the chewiness from the pectin. We really like the texture on those. The Sour Patch Bears are a little bit softer, a little bit stringier than a traditional gummy bear, and you also get the sugar coating on the outside. And I already talked about the vegan ones, so I really like these ones. And I played around with flavors. This is the regular
one, right? The regular gelatin one?
Yes.
I really like this one because I like the chew. This one, the pectin gummy, or the pectin candy, like it's still really good, but you don't get that bounce.
Yeah, there's no bounce to it. It's a little softer.
All right, what's this one?
So those are the Sour Patch Bears.
Okay.
So we played around with flavors on these as well. We have our flavor drops that we generally use. But for the gummy bears, we went with some Alice and the Magician flavor elixirs, or aromatic elixirs. And we made some fun ones. So there's like a tomato and a lemongrass and ginger in there. So did some fun flavors, and just another use for those ingredients.
All right, this is the vegan gelatin?
Yes. I couldn't tell you what that flavor. I think it's peach. That's peach.
Yeah, I like this because it is like, it's not as chewy as an animal-based gelatin, but it's definitely got the bounce, and
it's very reminiscent.
It has the body of it, so I really like I really like that option.
Yep.
And at my request, we made a giant Gulliver's Travel gummy bear scene. I don't know why I was obsessed with this, but I'm so happy it happened.
We did it for you, Janie.
It makes me very pleased. I'm gonna go take a picture of it later. So hopefully what we've offered you today is kind of some background on if you're trying to figure out how to make the perfect gummy for you, a good place to start with in picking your gelling agent, your acid, and your sugar. So in order to win this week's giveaway, where you can start experimenting on your own, leave in the comments below a fun flavor that you think you would make a gummy bear in. So not like a traditional like strawberry, watermelon, like
something fun.
Yeah, something fun and wild. Like leave that in the comments. And I believe Scott is volunteering to make things now, so maybe we will make the gummy bear if you're the winner that is selected. And then eat it on camera. maybe, we'll see. Okay. So hopefully we've covered it all. If you do have any questions, as always, leave it in the comments as well. We do like hearing from you, and if we can help you at all, we're more than happy to. So from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Garrett. Thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell so you get notified when we drop a new video.
To get today's recipes and all of our recipes, remember to go to blog.modernistpantry.com where you'll get recipes, ask a chefs, tips and tricks, and more.
And if you haven't already, tell a friend so they know what's going on here at WTF.
And as always, to get any of the ingredients you saw today, you can go to modernistpantry.com to shop.
And until next time, we'll be here in the test kitchen helping you create memorable and magical experiences.